Are we going?
Yeah.
Alright, today I'm making bread. It's an old family recipe from my nonna in Sicily.
Well, good day to you and welcome back to the channel. Well, hey, look what I have in my greedy little hands. Yes, that's right. This is a Kodak Charmera. A Kodak Charmera. This is a little keychain size digital camera marketed by Kodak, made by Rito, the company out of Hong Kong. And I want to do a little review of this and show you how it works. These have been quite popular this year. And in fact, they're a little bit difficult to get a hold of, I've been told. This was loaned to me by a local photographer. Stay tuned. Well, here I am on my walk with the Kodak Charmera 1987 keychain digital camera. It's a few days, maybe a day before Halloween. Maybe today is Halloween. Oh, today's the 30th. Tomorrow's Halloween. So if you go to Kodak's website and click on the link to the Charmera camera, it'll take you to an external website that's actually Rito's website out of Hong Kong. So this camera comes in 7 different body styles, different colors, and they're blind box packages, meaning that you don't know which style you're getting when you buy it. So people are buying these and trying to collect all 7. There's also an 8th style that is clear, a clear body style. They're rather rare, I've been told. It comes with a USB-C cable and a little key ring. Here is the key ring right here. I use the key ring on a lanyard around my neck, and it's quite convenient. It does not come with a micro SD card, but you do need to have a micro SD card. It will store 2 pictures internally, but otherwise you need a memory card. So the camera has a little 1/4" CMOS sensor. This is a tiny little sensor that's 3.6 by 2.7 millimeters. Maybe about the size of a large grain of rice, a 4.5 millimeter diagonal size. It is a 4:3 aspect ratio sensor, and it's a 10.8x crop factor compared to a full frame sensor. It has a lens, a tiny, tiny little lens that's a 35 millimeter equivalent angle of view, f2.4. It shoots 1.6 megapixel JPEGs that are 1440 by 1080 sized, and it shoots 30 frames per second AVI video in 4:3. It has an internal 200 milliamp hour rechargeable battery, and you recharge it through the USB port in the bottom, and it weighs 30 grams. So let's go through and look at all the buttons, controls, and menus on the little Charmera. Well, you have a power button right on the top in the center. This is your shutter button to the right of it. On the back screen, you have an optical tunnel kind of viewfinder. The field of view is a little tighter than the actual image area. So it's just really looking more at the center of the image. There's an LCD screen, a color screen. This is your playback and select button, and these up and down buttons enable you to select different filters and effects. And then there's a little speaker, little beepy noises come out of that speaker. And on the bottom, you have USB-C for charging the internal battery. There is a reset button that you can use a paper clip or whatever to reset it if you ever have any problems. And then a micro SD card. And of course, the tiny little lens and the 1/4" sensor behind it. To turn the Charmera on, press the power button and hold it for about 3 seconds. Makes a little beepy noise. It'll ask you if you want to do stills or video or set the date. To select those, you use these up and down arrow keys to cycle through your choice, and then hit the playback OK button to select it. So I've selected stills. The number in the upper right corner, it says 99999. It's just an approximation of how many possible images are left on the card for you to shoot. In other words, how much memory is left. If you want to take a picture, just press the shutter button. If we hit the power button again, short power button selection, you can then arrow to the video selection, hit OK. And now you're going to be in the video shooting mode. Press the shutter button to start recording, press it again to stop recording, and yes, it does record audio as well. It's not that great. and then press the power button again and go back to this main menu, and you can arrow over to the date select, hit OK. So here you have a choice of having the date show up in photos or video or both by toggling these switches on. You can just arrow up and down, and then you can select whether you want the date to be in a year, month, date, day, month, year, month, day, year, and then you can set the date itself, and it's actually still set. That is good. Press the power button to get out of that, press the power button again to get out of that, and you can go back to your main selection. So now we're in the stills mode. In stills or in video mode, in standby, these two up and down arrows enable you to cycle through all the different effects, and there's a little symbol for them right here. I think that's warm tone. This is cool tone. This is black and white mode. It's hard for you to see that. Let's put a red ballpoint pen. There is like a film mask, like a 35mm sprocket hole mask effect. This is like a Kodak photo editing looking kind of mask. There's some different Kodak symbols on the picture. There is the Charmera logo with the picture in the middle. And then you have these high contrast effects, red, blue, yellow. I like the yellow, black and white. So this is basically just like lithographic, white and dark and no middle grayscales. And then back to the normal mode. Those are all the modes you have available. So now to power off the Charmera, it takes about a 2-second press on the power button. Just like that. So then to attach the little keychain, it's a little fiddly. Just go like that. And then I'm using a little lanyard so I can wear it around my neck. So another feature it has, I'm in the still mode right now, another feature it has is a little white LED light that lights up. If it detects the subject is too dark, let's try that. There. It turns on this little LED light to try to give a little exposure to the still images. Now, you cannot manually adjust the exposure on the camera, but I do notice it has automatic gain control, automatic exposure, and it kind of tends to do it in steps. So right now I'm pointed at the table. I'm going to point it down more toward the shadows and watch. It kind of steps up in little adjustment steps. And you'll see when I go to the brighter thing, it adjusts down. Let's try it again. Boop, boop, boop. See that? So I've noticed if you want to take a photo and you aim the camera at a scene, give it about 5 seconds. Give it time to adjust the exposure. Okay, so you can take the micro SD card out of the camera, use an SD adapter, and transfer the files using an SD card reader to your computer, or you can use a USB-C cable. So I'm going to just plug a C cable into the Charmera, and I'm going to plug the USB-A side of it into my A adapter. And then as soon as I plug the USB in, the camera comes alive and it shows a drive symbol. And the Charmera's memory card shows up here as its own memory card. I have one photo currently in it. I have transferred all the rest of the photos to the computer that was in it. Also, if you need to erase the images off the memory card, you can do so here with it connected to your computer. And you can also format the drive. So I've been going out on my morning walks with this camera. Sometimes I take another camera, like today I was taking my Zorky One film camera. I leave the camera powered off until I see a picture I want to take. It's a 3-second button press to power up the camera. Just hit the OK button and then you're ready to shoot, take your picture, and then it's a 2-second button press to power it off. So it doesn't take long to power it on or off. Although using it like that, it's not going to have the speediness of a street photography camera, but around my neighborhood, street photography is more like standing on the curb watching cars go by. I find the camera is pretty usable. The controls work well. The little peep sight viewfinder is not that useful, and the screen is bright enough that I can just compose, even in bright sun, on the back screen. Well, up to now, we've seen how the Charmera performs out in the wild in bright daylight conditions, and it has some limitations. The highlights get blown easily, and I noticed close in, if I'm holding the camera to arm's length, like vlogging or whatever, taking a selfie, the focus is really set backwards to infinity. So because I like to tinker and fiddle with things and try to improve things, I had this crazy idea that maybe I could control the exposure a little bit better with a neutral density filter, and then maybe I could get a little bit better focus close in with an external lens. So I took this wide-angle adapter lens for my cheap Canon Vixia camcorder, and I mounted a ND filter on the back of it with some adapter rings, and I went out shooting some video clips and still photos, but really they weren't that great. There was hardly any real improvement to it. You still had the problem of the highlights being easily blown out with the camera, and the focus, maybe it was drawn in a little bit closer, but the camera has such a low resolution as it is, it didn't really improve the picture quality that much. So yeah, you can hack this little camera with add-on lenses and filters, but I didn't really see a great amount of improvement to it. And doing it, it makes the camera much bigger than it really is. And that's one of the benefits of the little thing, is it's so lightweight and small. Put it on the lanyard, on your keychain. That's the real advantage of it. Well, to be absolutely fair about this little camera, it is not a great image producer. It makes junky pictures. Let's be honest about it. So it is fun to use little cameras like this, but they're not great photographic tools necessarily. However, I have noticed over the years that because I've dabbled a lot in black and white pinhole photography and film photography with toy cameras and black and white film, there is a kind of a toy camera aesthetic. If you take a digital file and convert it to black and white, do a little adjusting to it. And I've done that to a handful of color images taken with the Charmera. I think that it has a little bit different aesthetic when you give it a little bit of a higher contrast black and white look, reduce the shadows, try to pull down the highlights a little bit, but of course they end up being blown right out of the camera. Put a slight vignette on it. It does have an interesting look to it when you do that, and I've done that with these images, and I would suspect that this might be the way to go if you're interested in artistic images with a little dinky, low-resolution, crummy little digital camera like this. This might be one way to deal with the images. So another thing I'd like to experiment with is taking these digital files and printing them, because sometimes even lower res pictures look a little better when printed. So I'm going to make some really small black and white pictures on thermal paper using the Phomemo thermal printer. And then I'm going to make both black and white and color pictures with the Canon Selphy dye sublimation printer. So I'm going to go ahead and get those set up, transfer some photos to my phone, use the appropriate apps for both the Canon and the Phomemo, and see what we get. Well, these tiny little thermal prints on the Phomemo printer, they kind of match the aesthetic of this little toy camera pretty well, I think. But these are adhesive little pictures. You can stick them on a postcard or in a little journal book, or paste them to a letter that you're writing to somebody, or you can have a lot of fun with these. It really doesn't have a true grayscale. It's more of a half-tone dot kind of effect, but they are kind of cute, and the low resolution of the Charmera camera really kind of matches the Phomemo's aesthetic. So this is one way to be creative with the Charmera camera. Get you a little thermal printer and make these little adhesive prints and just have fun with it. Well, I think the black and white 4x6 turns out quite a bit better than looking at the same crummy JPEG image on a big computer screen. The color one is also quite nice. I think this is a good use case for a little cheap camera like this, is if you want to print these at a fairly small size, they just end up looking a lot better than viewing it on a big computer screen. You're not blowing it up as much. So yeah, I think these are a good use case. There's a little bit of a softness to them. They're not super crisp, but they have a nice older film style, like the kind of prints we would have gotten at the drugstore film lab back 40 years ago. It kind of has that aesthetic to it. Having little junky cameras like this is all about creativity. And a lot of times, giving yourself purposeful limitations, technical limitations, forces you to be more creative. And that's what I like about funky little products like this. And as always, stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.